This is the Skyler Jarvis Show! Yeah!
What's up, everybody? This is the Skyler Jarvis Show. I'm your host, Skyler, and today we are going to be talking about the full cast Harry Potter books. Now, for those of you who didn't know, in November of 2025, Audible and Pottermore Publishing released the first full cast Harry Potter book, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, or Philosopher's Stone, whichever side of the pond you're on. And they would release one per month leading up to the final book in the series, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. Now, I specifically wanted to talk about this after the Deathly Hallows came out. I wanted to talk about this as a full series. And the reason I wanted to do that is I wanted to experience these stories again and get back into my Harry Potter mood. You know, get back into the series again, read the books in these full cast versions, see how they stacked up. And for me and my friends, we are audiobook geeks. Like, we love hearing audiobooks. Particularly off of NLS Bard, sometimes Audible. Me and my friends, we'd like to alternate between the two. But for me, starting out with the Harry Potter series, it was the Eric Sandvold narrations. And for those of you who do not know, for those of you who aren't blind that watch my show, NLS Bard is a library service for the blind and physically, it used to be blind and physically handicapped, but now it's blind and print disabled. National Library Service for the blind and print disabled. So that includes people with dyslexia or that have trouble, like have a little bit of vision loss. They also qualify as well. So there is the Harry Potter series on NLS Bard. You can either listen to the Jim Dale versions, which they did that a few years ago, but before that it was Eric Sandvold who narrated, and he was an American narrator. But back in my high school days, in 2016, I read them for the first time. I read the Harry Potter series, and I got the first book on cartridge, along with the Complete Chronicles of Narnia, which was also narrated by Sandvold. And the journey just goes from there. I really got into it for a few years. That was one of the main series I came back to and read again and again and again through my high school years. And then as my reading expanded to different authors, particularly Stephen King, the Harry Potter books kind of took a backseat. I didn't really listen to them there for a little bit. So having these full cast editions come out, like, it was everything I could have wanted, everything I would have expected. Like, they knocked it out of the park, and it really brought me back to those times, especially as I got later on into the series, because, you know, books 4 through 7 really, are still my highlights, even after hearing the full cast editions. You know, I was honestly eager to find out, I'm out of school. How are these books going to stack up, over all the stuff I've read since then? And they did very good. Like, younger Harry, Ron, and Hermione. Oh gosh, what is his name? Who does Harry? He does a good job. Arabella Stanton as Hermione Granger. I loved every scene she was in. She almost stole the scene. She was so good. And for the first 3 books, the younger cast was really good. And then I was honestly, whenever I found out that they were doing, younger actors for the young cast, and then, slightly older, like teenage cast for books 4 through 7, and I was wondering, like, how is that gonna stack up against the younger actors? Like, are you still gonna be able to tell these characters and their growth? And you really can. You really can. The chemistry between these characters is so good, especially getting into the later books. Books 4 through 7 really, were highlights for me. Like, there were moments that stuck with me that I had read before with the Eric Sandvold narrations, but it came nowhere close. The scene didn't hit as hard. And then when I listened to it with the full cast version, the scene came to life so much, and I was enjoying parts that I either didn't really take that much interest in when I read them during my high school years, or just didn't really pay attention to. So it was really good having everything acted out. Really brought you and made you feel like you were part of that. You were watching from the sidelines. I've described it to my mom and friends as a movie with audio description that you can't cut off, and it perfectly fits. You're basically watching an audio movie, and for us blind people, we watch movies with just audio. That's how we see it. Like, especially for people who don't have sight, we base movies off of audio and hearing. So for us, it was really interesting in hearing these characters come to life, and some of the adult actors in this, man. Jackson Knopf as Harry Potter. I loved his performance, especially in the last 3 books. That was really interesting. Hermione, I was honestly curious to see how Nina Barker Francis would do as Hermione, and she did a really good job. Reese Mulligan as Ron. I was kind of waiting to see how his character arc would like, and he blows it out of the park. Like, he does so good. Like, the trio honestly feel like a group of people that hang out together, get in fights. They fight every now and then. They make up. And especially, spoilers if you haven't read, especially when Ron and Hermione start showing feelings for each other, but that really made an impact. Like, I enjoyed those 3 actors together, and they just complemented each other so well. Hugh Laurie as Albus Dumbledore. Man, I will say, like, Hugh Laurie acts Dumbledore out exactly how I pictured him when I read the books with the Eric Sandvold narration. Exactly how I pictured Dumbledore. And Snape, a lot of people don't like the actor for Snape. I think his name is Riz Ahmed. I think that's how you say his name. I don't know. Forgive me, Riz, if I butchered your name, but he did a very good job. You know, I think way too many people, you know, they said they didn't like Snape, but I think a lot of people are trying to compare him too much with Alan Rickman's portrayal of Snape, which, you know, honestly, it was, you know, I did like Alan Rickman's Snape, but Riz Ahmed's Snape is more closer to the book. Like, you know, he's, I think Ron says in the first book, like, Snape can get downright ugly, and he can. And he does that sign whenever Snape is mad. I always love to see him when Snape is really mad. Like, you can, it definitely fits the description in that first book. You know, hearing him act Snape out. Matthew McFadden as Lord Voldemort, man, he blows it away, especially in the 7th book. Really blows it out of the park. Michelle Gomez as Minerva McGonagall was really good. I'm trying to think of all the standout people that, you know, Keira Knightley as Dolores Umbridge. Man, she nailed that part. Me and Chase were talking about it, and that was one character we wanted to see how she would be portrayed, and she is definitely like, she has that girlish voice, but she's quite a force, I will say, in book 5. And there's some scenes in book 7. But overall, this project, for anybody who is wanting to get into the Harry Potter series and picks this time to do so, I think it's a very decent way to get into the Harry Potter world. Like, it's a great, if you're looking for that, you know, acted out scenes and stuff, like the, you know, like a movie but in book form, this is going to be right up your alley. And the sound design, I will say, like, you can have it in Dolby Atmos, which it's basically a, oh man, how do I explain Dolby Atmos? It's basically like surround sound for a headset. Like, you hear certain things in certain directions and stuff, but you can also hear it, you know, with regular audio as well, and it is just as good. I do recommend listening to it with both if you do have a Dolby Atmos headset that can support that. So they offered a really good way to hear these books and get into the series before the HBO show, which there was a trailer that just got dropped, and it makes me excited because it seems like they're going by the books for a lot of stuff. And I'm interested to see how that turns out. Like, I wonder if they're gonna, you know, stick to the lore, but, you know, I've heard they're gonna expand, like, go through Ron and Hermione's point of view. You know, I wonder how well they're going to balance that and stick to, you know, the lore from the books. And like I said, these full cast editions are a perfect way to get into that. If you're wanting to know, if you absolutely want to know what happens before the HBO shows, because it's going to be a 10-year run from what we hear. And yeah, I'm honestly really excited to see how the show interprets the books. And I hear a lot of stuff about it's going to take place in the 90s. I would like to see how that goes, because the books actually do take place in the 90s, and they're sticking to that. So I hope they do it. I hope they do good for the show. I hope they make it something that you would want to watch in a 10-year run. You don't want to mess up the series before it can even get off the ground. So they're going to do one book per season. I'm honestly excited for that, because that means they can really go in deep with some of the lore in these books, unlike the movies. And I will say, I am not a fan of the Harry Potter movies. And, obviously they took a lot more stuff than they needed to out. But, I'm not gonna say they're necessarily bad. They just didn't do it for me, because the books, whenever I think of Harry Potter, I think of those books. And for movie fans, I don't like to say that they're bad, because they obviously have a good fan base, a huge fan base. I'm just going to say they just weren't for me. But the HBO show, I'm really interested to see how that goes, because if they're doing it by the book, they have a lot of time to develop some of these plots that the movies didn't go over or took out entirely. And it would be interesting to see how that goes. So yeah, these are my thoughts on the full cast edition. So I am going to do a 7-part review, and I'm going to go through every book. Shout out to Mike's Book Reviews. He was the one that kind of inspired me. He did a Stephen King, he went over every Stephen King book. And I kind of want to do that with the Harry Potter series and go through all the books. And I will also be doing the review for the full cast edition, as well as talking about the book in general and what makes it good and bad. So be on the lookout for that. And then after book 7, after I do the one for book 7, I will be doing a ranking video on the 7 books from worst to best. And with my ranking video, it's none of these books are bad enough for me to tell you not to read them, but least favorite to favorite, in other words. And my least favorite I still read, so all of the books are good. It's just my list of, my least favorite to favorite. So be on the lookout for that. Without further ado, this is Skyler Jarvis signing off. Peace!